Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. My name is Alex. I'm the founder of Gameplay Candles, and I'm joined tonight by my esteemed co-host and ever enigmatic and effervescent Steve. Every week, we embark on epic adventures filled with enchanted enemies, exotic landscapes, and endless excitement, all while being entertained by Steve's exceptional expertise and electrifying enthusiasm. His game nights are extraordinary experiences that leave us exhilarated, enlightened, and eager for more. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Alex. And I'm very flattered by your intro. It improves every week. So thank you for that.
Thank ChatGPT. I
Oh,
wish I could claim. I wish I could claim to be that. That. What am I trying to say? Creative, but I know what words to put in to
you're
the.
good. You're just doing what every good DM does. They take something out of the book and they tweak it to meet their needs.
Exactly. Well, let's get into it, shall we? First thing we always do is the fun little discount game. If you're joining us for the first time, we do this every Thursday at the top of the hour. We're going to roll a d20 and add that roll to a flat 10% discount, and you will get that combined discount off your entire order at gameplaycandles.com. So, without further ado, if I can do this correctly,
Come on,
three,
20.
yeah, let's see. Come on. 4. Okay. So that's a 4 plus 10. So 14% discount off your entire order at Gameplay Candles. And yeah, that's going to be active for the next hour. The way you can take advantage of that is by entering code DESIGN at checkout. That's design, all capitals, and get your 14% discount at gameplaycandles.com. Okay, well, with that out of the way, let's see our audience plummet. But besides that, we got a couple quick business updates here before we get into the meat and potatoes of today's discussion.
Alex, maybe we should start doing this at the end then.
Oh yeah. No one cares about the business updates, do they? No, but for this session, we'll keep it on target. Stay on target. Let's see. So we have our 3 seasonal scents live now on the website. I did a couple batches earlier this week, so all jars and all tins of those seasonal scents are back in stock. We already sold out of I think it was Palace Gardens briefly. I knew that scent would sell out. It's a fantastic scent. It's a strong scent. If you want your house to smell like a greenhouse, or if you want to transport your gaming group from the game table to expansive royal gardens, and that's a candle for you. But basically, it's back in stock along with the other 2 candles. That's Hero's Domain and Heroine's Realm. So go to Gameplay Candles, check it out right now, and use that code for a 14% discount. So earlier this week, we realized that the automated system we use to alert us that people have signed up to be scent testers was broken. So we just discovered that there's a pretty sizable group of folks out there who have heard our call for help, and signed up to be scent testers, and we just became aware of them. So I sent some sample scents out just today. But there's more going out tomorrow, and then probably more going out on Saturday. As a result, we're going to delay the drawing of our whatchamacallit, our free jar candle that our scent testers are automatically entered into once they get that feedback back to us. So stay tuned for that. If you signed up to be a scent tester anytime in the last 2 months, please be patient. I swear to God, we just discovered you. You're going to get some candles. Kegs, can't wait to say Hero's Domain is actual fire. Okay. In a good way, right? Okay. Kegs, I'm glad you really enjoyed that. Hero's Domain was a fun one for us to develop because it has such the title doesn't really mean anything. We really had to work to paint the picture and describe what scent we were going for, and then find the fragrance oils that work to bring that scent to life. So thank you. I appreciate those kind words. Okay. Other quick update. We are going to be at ChupacabraCon 9 in early May, May 5th, 6th, and 7th. Steve and I are going to be manning a booth there. And it's at the Embassy Suites in San Marcos. So if you're in Central Texas area, come on down, come see us. ChupacabraCon is a small but really small but enthusiastic event, I think is how they describe themselves. They pull people from all over the country. There's less than 1,000 people in attendance usually over the past several years, but who knows about this year, because apparently they usually get 25 to 30 industry guests, but they're at 45 so far this year. So it's a great opportunity to have some one-on-one time with your favorite authors or game designers for tabletop RPGs, and to go check out your favorite candles and your two favorite live stream co-hosts.
And meet the founder and dreamer himself, Alex.
Meet the effervescent Steve. But yeah, that's
drinks I've had.
Again, yes, cheers. That is May 5th, 6th, and 7th in San Marcos, Texas. Okay. The boring stuff is out of the way. Steve, what are we talking about tonight?
Tonight we're talking about the term fire. And you're not understanding it. Tell me how old you are without telling me. Tell me you're old without telling me how old.
No cap.
No, we're talking dungeons.
Dungeons. I seem to have heard that word somewhere before.
Yes, maybe in the title Dungeons and Dragons, because dungeons are integral to the game.
That's it.
And so oftentimes the question is, well, I know when you say the word dungeon, there's definitely a connotation to it.
Yeah, I'm thinking like a dank prison, like the bottom layer of a castle or a ruin or something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. You think it's like something small. It's like a basement where they keep, Princess Bride type thing. It's just it's small and it's not meant to do much except maybe torture.
Right.
But in the game, it really, to me, it's anything that kind of encloses the story. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times we're playing, it's, there's a building, but they can go outside the building if they wanted to. Like, I'm going to go a mile away from the building. It really doesn't put much limit. But with the dungeon, you kind of control the story a little bit tighter. Mm-hmm. Put your characters in a little bit more, I don't want to say danger, but it's definitely, it limits what they can do.
Well, I would say danger. I think that's an appropriate adjective to describe a dungeon, because like you said, it's an area where the characters are bound, or they're going to be funneled through this one particular area. And I know you, Steve, at our table, this means to you that you can invest some time and energy in infrastructure of dungeons, and especially the maps that you do, your insane freestyle hand maps. So yeah,
I love it. And you're right. I mean, between just traps, like simple traps, mm-hmm. magical traps, what the consequences of those traps are, mm-hmm. to, okay, I know that like by this point in the dungeon crawl, they are going to be in some rough shape. Is there something I can do to kind of keep them all from dying immediately? The next big bad guy comes up. So, maybe some potions, other little spells, whatever that might be strewn along the way as strategic points that if they find will help them on their journey.
Excellent. Yeah. That design, that progression, that I think is like sort of at the heart of today's discussion, along with just how you can use the dungeon to further the story. So I have some thoughts on the dungeon. I mean, like you said, it's in the name. We're talking about it because it's an integral part of any D&D campaign. We don't necessarily mean castle's dungeon, just any area that the NPC or the player characters and the adventuring party is going to go through. And like I said, at least they're going to be in danger at some points. This is like an area not controlled by them. It's going to combine aspects of combat and exploration, because a lot of times the dungeon isn't really known. But
yeah, a lot of times they could be strongholds, so they're mm-hmm. they're going to have some type of defense. Mm-hmm. So I mean, yeah, just to talk about up here, we talk about like motivation of why even go into a dungeon. Yeah. So the story will incorporate, is there some special artifact that you've been tasked to find? Is there some NPC's daughter that you must save? Is it to whatever it might be? So there's that storyline to it.
So I full disclosure, I have not played D&D or like earlier D&D editions that much. I think I played one game of 3.5 and immediately fell in love with it, and then didn't play D&D for 10 years, and then 5th edition came out, and it was the right time and right place in my life. So But as I understand it, like earlier editions, especially like I think the original first edition, there was no motivation needed. Like the motivation to clear the dungeon was the fact that you're adventurers and you are clearing a dungeon. Like that's it. But now I think since we've refined D&D into this fifth edition where collaborative storytelling is so important, yeah, making sure the motivation for your player group is really clear is like an important first step of designing any dungeon.
Making
Why?
sure
Why would
it
they go?
applies to your characters too. I mean,
Mhm,
if I have a party of paladins, I'm not going to have like a giant pot of gold be the objective.
mhm,
It just wouldn't make sense for the. I mean, everyone's got kind of the motivative aspects of the story, and so if you're trying to
mhm,
actually keep it, as a dungeon master, you should look at your players, what
mhm,
their backstories, what motivates them, what
mhm.
makes sense in the story, if it falls in line. I mean, it's easy to say, well, just go because it's next level. It's not a video game. It's like you said, collaborative storytelling. And if you're going
Yep.
to be a good DM, you're thinking about what your players would do, not your actual human play, but like the characters. Like, what is their motivation? How
Right.
it falls in line with the plot, and what's the next step? I mean, you're almost making like a small movie.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great way of putting it. Especially when you tie in characters' backstories and whatnot. Uh, that's next level. That's like to me like being bringing that level of thoughtfulness to the motivations is going to just make the game that much more enjoyable.
Yeah,
Um, something I do when I'm first like coming up with the actual dungeon itself, like the details of the layout, is trying to identify like a applicable motif or a theme for the dungeon. Like it wouldn't make sense to drop a bunch of Arctic or tundra monsters in the middle of a ruin in the forest, in like a tropical forest, unless I don't know, maybe you're there to like uncover the ice crown or some magical artifact that is
yeah.
powerful enough to create a little bubble of environment unto itself. So you can still do a lot of stuff like that, but you got to
Just
do it in a careful way.
make sure it makes sense in the story.
Yeah, exactly. And it's fun to I was in preparing for tonight's live stream, I was watching a plethora of YouTube videos from people much more qualified than I about how they go about designing dungeons and identifying these motifs and these themes is a very common aspect, I'd say, of dungeon design. But um, having different branches within the dungeon get their own sub motif or like lean into different aspects of the overall theme. That's something
Yeah,
I don't think I've done before, but I really want to now, having watched a video or two on it. And so,
that's a great
um,
point. And you can, like, I like to look at it also from like the what's the point of the dungeon? Right. So if it's a big bad guy and that's his lair,
mhm.
what logically would be in there? Not just like, oh, there's a long tunnel that goes on to a big chamber, and another tunnel, and boom, he's there. Well,
Yeah, that's
is there
boring.
is there sleeping quarters? Is
Mhm,
there like giant halls? Is there like a market? I mean, like, what do these people do down here? What's the purpose? Is there
mhm,
stores they need to have? And you're talking about motifs. I mean, you could have like a one. You go to the left, and it's the sleeping quarters and whatever they do, and you can have a completely different motif from okay. But if you go to the right, it's more the armory, the blacksmith, or the
right.
bank, and you can definitely you can make dungeons. Just it could be like a whole campaign of being in one dungeon.
Oh, yeah. No, I haven't played it before, but, like, Dungeon of the Mad Mage, I think, is, like, brutal, a really brutal, huge dungeon that takes people multiple levels, across the adventure, and so, uh, that would be like an epic dungeon crawl. But for my money, I think, like, a 5 to
Yeah,
7 room dungeon, um can work really well. Getting a little bit bigger to explore those sub motifs and different aspects of the same theme. That's going to require probably a bigger layout, but that's the fun part. Honestly, is like coming up with the layout and map making and whatnot. Um, but overall, using the dungeon to explore motifs, explore themes, and really make people think. I love putting moral quandaries in dungeons and whatnot. So there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer, but yeah, it's a fun place to like really test the metal of your PCs and their adherence to the alignment chart. Like we have
Right.
Steve and I, we have a character in our current campaign who's a paladin, but you wouldn't know it because he's uttered such things, such memorable, fun lines as "no witnesses," and he's like not a vengeance paladin either. He's supposed to be a good guy, but
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, and the character is a good guy, but just sometimes they'll just mumble things like, "Did they really just say that?" Which just keeps the table laughing.
yeah, it's good, no doubt, no doubt. Steve, how do you keep combat from getting stale? Because like we said, combat is such
So,
a integral part of a dungeon.
so the dungeon, not only like you talk about motifs, but the dungeon can also almost be like a background character for combat. If I think we've talked about it before, but thinking 3D, don't think 2D. So you can have like stairs or whatever, but you can make, I'm trying to think how to say this. You can make the environment very integral to the combat. Whether you're the bad guy, now it funnels, and now you have like a likely, avenue of approach and kind of a choke point. And so, like, how do your players handle that? They go one at a time. You can do different things, or you can have different elevations, and you're worried about falling. But it can all, I don't know. I just find it very interesting. You can have like blind.
It reminds me.
Around.
Yeah, it reminds me of. I did a short form video a while ago on tips for better combat, and number one tip was use the silent NPC in every counter, and that is the environment. Yeah,
so much more better said than I do.
Well, don't worry. I had hours to think about how to sum that up. But let's see. Pamela Dobias is asking, do you use software to do these designs or just pen and paper? How do we bring our dungeons to life in combat or otherwise?
I think it's a personal preference. There is software, Alex. I know you've used it for creating lots of free things out there on the web. Just Google. I use pen and paper. To me, that just helps me with my creative process because as I'm drawing it, I'm also thinking about the story in great detail, and sometimes I just get inspired. It is very time consuming. I love it, but I enjoy it.
Now, Steve, when you're drawing those dungeons for hours and hours on end, do you use anything to set an ambiance or mood, or maybe fill the room with a delightful scent?
There's two things I do. Actually, there's three. I'm sorry.
Okay.
One, I got to get the music right.
Okay.
Two, I got to get the lights right.
And
so that includes a couple old-fashioned lamps I have. But the third aspect is to get the smell right.
Pam nailed it.
Set the tone like a candle.
Oh, what a concept. Well, yes, Steve.
Mountain Dwarven.
Dwarven Mountain Hall. That's
the
one.
Dwarven Mountain Hall.
Yeah,
is my favorite. Too many. And I'll do that. I just have that. I have the lights low. I'll have a couple other flames going that don't smell because I don't want to have any conflicts of candle smells. And it just really sets the mood and helps get the creative juices. But I can't understate how much smell is such an important aspect of that. It's just in memories and whatever, but it gets me going.
They do say smell is like the most closely associated sense to memory. And that's what we aim for, is to create this, different candle scents that evoke those feelings or help you immerse yourself a little bit more in the fantasy while you're either playing the game or, in the Dungeon Master's case, designing it. Now, it's funny because you talk about setting the tone with like lighting and music and candles and whatnot. We're talking about map making still, right? But yes. For me, I'm on the other end of the spectrum where usually I am rushing to get my dang map sorted out right before a session. And Steve can testify as to how many times I've texted the group, "Hey, who has a color printer that can print out some documents for me?" Last minute.
5 minutes before we're supposed to be there.
Yeah. Yep. So time management, still a skill I'm working on, but I maybe that's one of the reasons why I lean into the software side of things, Pam. I have a couple different accounts with different software groups, but for the main part, for map making, I use Incarnate, Inkar, Nate. Okay, but yeah, so that's the path that I go. Let's see, Adam Blanco. Adam, good to see you. Always fun using the surroundings and combat rule of cool. Can't be denied. Absolutely correct. Yeah, using that environment, that silent NPC in every combat encounter. For my money, I think it's a good rule of thumb just to have an option out there with every combat encounter is something a perceptive character or creative player would pick up on and do. I really like doing in caves. The first time I did this, I used a stalactite field as difficult terrain, except for characters that rolled a very high dex check when they first entered it and were able to navigate it. So yeah. I think this question started with me asking you, Steve, how you mix up combat, but I think the enemy combos that are possible there is another way that I frequently will use, another tool I will use to keep combat fresh. Normally when I'm designing a dungeon, you have an idea of who's already populating the dungeon. If it's a ruin, there could be wild animals. If it's an actual occupied area filled with enemies, then you can check out the NPC stat blocks at the end of the DMG or the or Volo's guide. But 3 or 4 different types of enemies you're going to encounter, maybe 1 or 2 unique enemies that you can give a name to and have special abilities or powers. But coming up with different combos and seeing, how would these guys tactically play together, and coming up with some fun stuff like that is always a good strategy for designing combat to be fresh in a dungeon.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point, Alex. When you really have your characters that make sense that can complement each other, just like in a party, you want some range guys, some tanks, whatever it may be, or then you can incorporate, going back to the environment, like traps that can hinder, especially in a way that can be very detrimental to that particular combat.
Yeah, it reminds me of this one. I think I have even talked about this before, but I had one campaign where there were roving bands of zombies, basically, and in each band there was an alpha, and then all the other zombies were sort of enthralled to it. But when they were enthralled, they gained benefits like much higher HP, much tougher attacks, and higher strength and AC, and all sorts of boons and bonuses. So that forced the parties to get smart, the adventuring party to get smart and start targeting the alphas in the party. And so then what happens when you get a whole party of alphas? That's a whole other problem. But mixing it up just in those one combat encounters for the type is a good strategy. Let's see. Pamela Tobias comments, you really should look at the Rambo movies to get some ideas. Oh, for traps, you mean? Pam, yeah.
Rambo, I guess 1 and 2 are pretty good trap.
I admit I've only seen one. Hiding in mud, leaping out of water. Yeah. I've only seen the first Rambo movie, but there was that one scene, I think, when the state troopers or whatever go out into the forest. It's like, I'll give you a war. I'll give you a war so bad you won't even believe it's happening to you while it's happening, or something like that. That's my Rambo impression. Oh yeah, I haven't. I should look up the rules on surprise rounds for combat, and have some enemies surprise y'all. That's some good thoughts there, Pam. Yeah,
that's giving me ideas for an next session.
Steve already shared with the group, by the way. What's the song, Steve? It comes up with these soundtracks to play during the game, and what was it?
There Won't Be Many Coming Home by Roy Orbison. I sent that. I'm I think this may be the music we start off with before the last final chapter of my campaign.
Okay, well, all right. Well, if it's not a TPK, then that's a win, right?
Yeah.
let's just hope that the cleric is the one who's left alive to revive us all.
There's just a lot of people after you in this campaign.
Yeah. It's like going to be the battle of the 5 armies, except everyone's just targeting us. Oh, Pam likes Roy Orbison. Isn't he a guy from like the 50s or 60s?
It's timeless, man.
Timeless. Was he one of the members of the plane that went down that inspired the song "By My Miss American Pie" or whatever?
No, you're thinking Richie Valens and oh god, Great Balls of Fire. I can't think of his name.
I swear to God, this is a D&D live stream, not a musical history live stream. But you know, who knows where the adventure takes us, right?
Yeah, you know, if I had a candle when that event was taking place, I'd probably remember it better.
Yeah. If only there was a scent you could associate with that memory. Shucks. Well, folks, if you need a memory enhancer, check out gameplaycables.com. There's my mid live stream plug there. Let's see, Steve. We've talked a lot about specific design elements in the dungeon, but how do you look at dungeons as part of like the greater story and how they could influence them? Do you ever do that with your overall campaign arc?
Because I've only really done this one campaign. I'm a fairly new DM.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I did incorporate that, but I knew kind of early on I wanted a dungeon to be kind of the pinnacle of my plot. Because like I said, that they are so dangerous. They restrict the players. Kind of good anticipation, and between the traps and other role playing that can still be incorporated. Because don't forget, you can do a lot of role playing still in a dungeon. It's not just combat after combat after combat.
Oh yeah,
lots of rooms for like
yeah.
You can do like puzzles and other things that can make it very interesting. Bring characters. I mean, a lot can happen. And your players will always take it in some direction you don't expect.
Yeah. Don't you know it, Steve? When you give us some puzzles or whatnot on the current campaign, I just can't wait to watch the train wreck that's going to go down as we overthink. Yeah, how do we open a door? It's like 45 minutes later. It's just you guys. It's just a door.
Turn the latch.
Well, that's funny. You say you're the first time DM and you haven't really looked at that, but I think your flair and your style actually lends itself to looking at a dungeon in the overall campaign, because I know that you have done like a sort of post-mortem analysis of a game night, and it's like, wow, you pissed off like not one but 2 new groups that are going to be after you. So
I try to think. Yeah, it's like I said, every time after it's what are the consequences of the actions taken during that time, and if it could be, and if you kill a bad guy, do they have family who may try to avenge it? Maybe it's nothing. If you steal something, who owned it? If they really, really liked that item and are not happy you have it. And so,
like a certain legendary sword that our paladin is using to,
it's like down people. Private property of the Pope. I mean, it was. Someone may be very interested in getting that thing back.
Yep. I really like taking a look at, the outcomes of this dungeon in terms of, well, what happens to this space now? Because when you get to a high enough level, it really makes sense to have a forward operating base or a stronghold all to yourself that you can then start extending your influence over the surrounding land. And so just you wait, Steve, until I take back over the reins for our party and we get through the next mini campaign that I got planned.
I think I look forward to being a player again for a little bit. And
yeah. Let's see, Pamela Tobias, real quick question here. What's the ideal number of people you all like during a game? Well, for my money, I think the absolute ideal number is between 4 and 6 player characters. After that, things get a little unwieldy at a table. And like, if you have 7 players, you can split the group into a 4-person campaign and maybe a 3-person campaign. You can do 3 people.
You start getting too long. I mean, then just the combat itself starts taking forever.
Yeah,
with all those additional turns.
Yeah, exactly. And like, you got to keep it snappy enough that no one's going to pull out their phone when it's not their turn, and it's not going to. They're not going to have side conversations about their favorite candle scents or anything like that. But oh, what's that? But after 6 people, it's a real challenge. Adam points out the bank map in the heist had a ton of references in it. Don't sell yourself short, Steve. For those of you who aren't at our gaming table, Steve drew not one, not two, but I think 3 maps that were at least like full easel styles. Each square of movement was like a 1 inch by 1 inch square. He colored in not colored in. He
Not that one.
detailed every square, and I mean like the floor tiles had individual unique cracks in it and crap like that, guys. So in the bank heists, like on the desks and whatnot, there were little Easter eggs that Steve put in of like symbols that we'd seen before or we're going to see next session and stuff like that. So yeah, Steve, your maps leave a lot to be. Your maps leave me with a lot to be desired. So that's going to be a major. Sorry, Adam. Sorry, other players at my table. But when I take over the DM reins, you're not going to get that sort of VIP's extra special treatment. But for everyone here, I think I can tease now that Steve's helping me come up with some artwork for some special edition candles that would be that are going to be on our labels. So you'll get to see firsthand maybe the craftsmanship and loving detail that Steve puts into his maps. So we'll see. Steve, do you have anything else to add about dungeon design and story element influence while we still have an audience here?
I think just be creative with it, and don't also look at it only as your players going in one direction, but as if what was the original design of the dungeon? Was it meant to keep people out? Was it meant to stop people? Is there an army living there? And those little bits can kind of just add, an added realism and dimension. I mean, you walk into a cafeteria, there's a bunch of orcs just sitting there getting a sandwich. It's kind of funny and surprising, like, what would happen? Yeah. So just think both ways, not only what the party would do, but what's the motivation of the bad guy. It's just kind of like storytelling. And what makes a good bad guy if they have a good backstory and motivation, and it makes sense.
Yep, exactly. Well said, Steve. Well, we've abused these people too long. It's 33 past the hour.
Late.
Yeah, exactly. Bear in mind, folks, you can go to gameplaykandles.com right now and enter code DESIGN at checkout to get 14% off your entire order. We play this discount game every Thursday at 9 o'clock Central. If you're seeing this later than 10 p.m. Central Time on Thursday, April 13th, fear not. We do this every week. Catch us next time. We'll take that D20 roll and we'll hopefully get something higher next week. But yeah, that's all I got for now. Everybody enjoy the rest of your night.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.